The Land Before Time, Journey Through the Mists, a presentation by myself, Avalon Marie Potts, for Mr. Stephen Honeywell's Intro to Communications class. My first slide here is the table of contents where we get to meet the gang. I will explain the setting, the plot, as well as a few different types of communication with listening and noise, nonverbal, verbal. Got culture and communication, conflict management, and then the last two, my personal views on communication, and then a reference slide. Meeting the gang, of course, we've got Littlefoot, who's the long neck. He is our main character. Sierra is the three-horn, Ducky the swimmer, Spike the spike-tail, and then Petrie is the flyer. This movie is set millions and millions and millions of years ago, before there were cities and states and countries, long before the first human ever walked the earth. Our main character Littlefoot and his friends set out on a journey into the land of the mists, to find a flower that will help his ill grandpa. Only the petals of the night flower can help save him. They will learn valuable lessons about their friendship and the significance of diversity along the way. Listening and noise. Listening is basically the concept of, hearing what somebody's saying, learning, deciphering, remembering, evaluating it, and then forming a response in order for the person that you are listening to continue the conversation. There's plenty of things that can happen in the listening process that obviously are going to be hindrances, they're going to be barriers, they're going to cause noise, basically. So in this scene, Littlefoot and his grandpa are having a conversation. Littlefoot is upset and does not want to leave. Grandpa says, "Don't worry, Littlefoot, the old one is wise." Littlefoot gets upset, obviously, and he goes, "Well, I don't think she's very smart," with like a little attitude. He runs off upset, thinking that he can help his grandpa anyway. And then, obviously, there's other long necks in the background that are just mumbling and talking over, and Grandpa's trying to explain that he will be okay, but Littlefoot, as the receiver, is choosing not to listen to what his grandfather is saying and choose in his own mind to say that I'm going to do what I can do to help you one way or another. Not that I don't care what you're saying, I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway. The message from Grandpa isn't being interpreted the way that Grandpa is actually saying it. He has a little bit of psychological noise going on, Littlefoot does, and ignoring his grandfather's words. Littlefoot's mind isn't focused on the words that Grandpa is saying. He's only focused on helping and making sure his grandfather is going to be okay. Verbal communication. For this scene, I chose, it's about halfway through. Littlefoot is trapped in a cave. After leaving the Great Valley, despite obviously everybody's words against don't go. He's in search of the night flower. The earth shook. Basically, there was an earthquake causing the cave to collapse, and Littlefoot and Allie get separated on both sides of a massive rock wall. Allie leaves Littlefoot to go receive some help from all of his other friends, while Littlefoot is alone, or so he thought. There are creatures lurking in the darkness, an alligator and an angry little bird named Dill and Iggy. Dill the alligator is hard of seeing, but she is the brawn of the duo. And while Iggy tells Dill where to go and where to find food and what to eat. The two of them end up getting into an argument, badgering back and forth. I need you like a hole in the head. I need you like a bug in the bed. Obviously, nobody needs a hole in the head and nobody needs a bug in their bed. But obviously, verbal communication is just expressing yourself with the words physically being spoken, with no hand gestures, no face gestures. That's all going to be nonverbal communication. But it kind of gives you that more of an imaginative function. It's more representational for like concrete objects. Nonverbal communication is just what I was talking about, but the complete opposite. It kind of adds to the communication without the use of spoken words. So your eye contact, your gestures, your posture, your body movements, your tone and pitch, as well as speed in which you speak. So in this scene, Littlefoot and his new friend Allie are walking up to Littlefoot's grandma and grandpa. Grandpa is laying on the ground, and all of Allie's, migrating herd is surrounding them. Littlefoot asks what's wrong with Grandpa, and Grandma tells him, well, he's very ill. Well, he'll get better, won't he? Is what Littlefoot says, and you can tell in his voice, instead of being, a happy little dinosaur, he was a little worried. There was some crackle in his voice. So like little cues like that kind of give you an indication that he's going to be upset or that does upset him. Grandma does try to explain to Littlefoot that some dinosaurs get better, and unfortunately some don't. Littlefoot's eyes begin to tear up and he hangs his head low. When the old one, which is the head of Allie's herd, says that she's seen this sickness before, but only in dinosaurs who eat this particular flower will recover. And you can tell that Littlefoot was upset due to his head hanging low, his loss of eye contact, again with the crackiness in his voice. And then you do see, like in the picture here, that his eyes start to water a little bit. Now, culture and communication. Culture is often described as traditions, rules, beliefs, norms, values, or standards of behavior, sometimes described as the way you do things. Now, everybody's culture is going to be a little bit different, even though I speak English and everybody else that is speaking English has different ways of saying things, different ways of doing things, as well as communicating things. In this scene with Allie, which is the newcomer, and then Sarah, um, Sierra does come off as a little bit more of a hard-headed, bolder individual, while Allie is a little tentative of that. Her culture, growing up with only long necks, could have something to do with that. She could have been told to stay away from other dinosaurs. She could have been told that other dinosaur or other types of dinosaurs, especially three horns, would hurt her. Um, Granted, Littlefoot is a long neck as well, and he has only ever grown up knowing different types of dinosaurs. He's a very cultural, diverse individual, and Allie may have been a little sheltered. Um, so with her issues with with Sierra in this scene obviously depicts that she grew up in a different way than everybody else did, and Sierra thinks she's stuck up, just like in the dialogue that I have over here. Sorry. My next scene is going to be depicting a little bit of conflict. So conflict is natural. Conflict happens. It's a basic disagreement or disharmony between persons or ideas. Basically, you come into a clash with somebody else. Conflict happens all the time. It's normal. It's natural to disagree with somebody. Not for the simple fact that you guys have different views on something. You might have the same common goal, but you may have different ways of figuring out how to get there. Everybody's mind works a little bit differently. In this scene with Dill and Iggy again, they are the bad guys. They get into an argument and begin to belittle one another with insults and condescending and hurtful way. Granted, their common goal was to eat the little dinosaurs. They had a bit of miscommunication that caused them to go their separate ways, and neither of them succeeded in their goal. Um, Up top, I have a little bit of dialogue that just kind of describes their conversation again, and then towards the end of their argument, Iggy says the word is incompatibility, and Iggy responds, "Not only that, but we don't get along." You see, I mean, it's the same concept that they have, but they're just not understanding. They're miscommunicating there. Now, conflict management, it's acknowledging that there is an issue and this is how we're going to fix it. There were two different conflicts, obviously, with Sierra and Allie, and then again with Iggy and Dill. Sierra and Allie didn't like each other, but Dill and Iggy weren't getting along. Both situations were easily something that could have been solved with proper communication techniques, but one group succeeded while the other one didn't. So Sierra and Allie settled their differences and finally became friends, while Dill and Iggy eventually went their separate ways. They Sierra and Allie chose to collaborate together to, um, succeed in their common goal to help save their friend Littlefoot, while Dylan and Iggy decided to compete with one another who was going to be better, who was, the more bronze, who was the more brain. Both of them had their pros and their cons, but having the idea to try and work together and mesh well together, they just couldn't seem to overcome that issue. Therefore, they both suffered and they both went on hungry. Now, my personal views on communication. Granted, there isn't a lot written here, so hopefully you can follow along with me. Communication through this class has described to me as the fundamental building block of literally everything. Whether it's communication with other languages, it's communication in science, it's communication in the future, in the past, in love, and with your family and your friends. You communicate with literally everything. These are just some pictures that I felt a little bit more connected to. Obviously, the loved one, you're listening, you're empathizing, you're validating, and you're offering. You are learning how to love and communicate, and how you want to be loved, and how you want others to love you, and how you are going to love others, whether it be, a strictly platonic relationship with a friend, or a relationship that you have with your significant other, your family, your friends, that kind of thing. Communication with other cultures, obviously, the blue one I have relatively in the center here shows the word communication in all form, or in a whole bunch of different types of languages. Granted, their cultures are going to be different, but the basic communication and trying to get your point across is the fundamental block. Now, when it comes to the future, the past, communicating what has happened and what you want to happen and how it will happen is what I feel like the arm here with the FaceTime of somebody just coming right off of a watch. It's where we're headed and what we're doing with our communication. And as much as it sucks being in the generation that hides behind computer screens and hides behind text messages, I like to express myself. And I'm a caller. I like to pick up the phone and I like to call people. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, people of my generation, like the 90s kids, the 2000s kids, they don't have that basic type of communication, and it's unfortunate, and hopefully we can steer away from it and we don't depend on a text message to talk to somebody. We can see eyebrows, we can, hear tone of voice, we can express that emotion when we like something, when we don't like something, those cues that are essential to communicating properly. And then the bottom one with the two heads and the gears, I thought that one was a perfect representation of communication as well. You're seeding somebody else's thought, which is turning around and seeding your own thought, and it's for science, it's for math, it's for art, it's becoming creative, it's how people discover things and how the world turns and how we're constantly evolving. And I think that this communication class with you, Stephen Honeywell, has been a very eye-opening class for me. So thank you. I appreciate you very much. And then my final slide is my references and my works cited. So thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and look forward to talking to you soon.